ESPN's Barry Melrose joins us here. Barry, we got a deadlock for the 8th seed. The Flyers own it with a game at hand. But have they arrived a little earlier than people thought? Is this team a little bit better than people thought they would be?
Yeah, I think when they had that salary dump halfway through the year, when Schenn was moved, I think people were thinking that they're rebuilding for next year when they'll have free agent money, and they moved some guys who are high paid that didn't really fit into the new style of the NHL, where speed is the key. And they've been awesome. Braden Schenn's been great. You mentioned Giroux's been great. They're starting to get some production from other guys. The defense has really changed with Gostisbehere back there. Goaltending has been great. I think that the majority of people that follow the NHL are a little surprised that Philadelphia is in the hunt for a playoff spot with 6-7 games left. It's pretty phenomenal what they've done.
Barry Melrose, how much credit do you give then Dave Hakstol for that? Because Hack has really seemed to energize the team. It's almost kind of the same roster of characters that we had last year, and yet they're in the playoff hunt.
I give him a ton of credit because there were 3 or 4 different times this year that team could have went south and really hit the skids and looked like a team that might be fighting for the Austin Matthews sweepstakes rather than a playoff spot. So I think Dave Hakstol's been great. I really think if Philly makes the playoffs, you got to look at him for Coach of the Year. I just think what he's went through, the way Philadelphia's changed, the movements they've made. Hakstol's been great. So I think he really deserves a lot of credit. I think he's been fantastic, and the way he kept them competing. As I said, they could have quit a number of times, and then no one would have had a problem with that because obviously they're in a rebuilding mode, and we can always say, well, we'll get a high pick this year and we'll spend some money in free agency and we'll right back at it. And that's usually the Philadelphia way. But this team has continued to compete and overcome things. And now, as you said, really, they're in the driver's seat now for the wild card. So I think Hakstol's done a fantastic job.
You mentioned the Jack Adams Trophy Coach of the Year. 4, 5, 6 games into Gostisbehere's Flyers career, I was probably too enthusiastic, and I had a talk with a colleague about, hey, we could put him in the Calder race. You could talk about him for Rookie of the Year. And the person looked at me like I had 3 heads. Now maybe it's not so far-fetched.
No, it's not so far-fetched. I think people were talking about that because of the games he missed, and I'm always a guy that comes down on the side of defenseman because I think it's a lot harder for a young defenseman to play than a young forward. If you make a mistake as a defenseman, it ends up in your net. If you make a mistake as a forward, it's usually covered up by a defenseman or a goaltender. So, usually it's a lot harder for a defenseman to be on the Rookie of the Year award because it's such a tougher position to play. So, like I said, I've seen Shane for the last couple of years in his college career with Union. I saw that game he played when they won the national championship in Philadelphia. And, he's just great. I talked to Nate Lehman about him the other day when I was doing the regional college hockey, and I said, Nate, did you ever expect him to be this good this fast? And he said, no. We knew he was going to be great. We knew he was special, but I don't think anyone thought he'd be a dominant defenseman second year in the NHL. So, he's brought himself into that group that's being talked about as Rookie of the Year. I don't think you can talk about the best rookie and not have Shane Gostisbehere in that conversation.
And I think it's fair. Barry Melrose is with us, ESPN NHL hockey analyst. It's fair to say, Barry, that this team is probably not here unless they had to bring him up, which was kind of by accident.
Yeah, you're right. You look at and the thing about not just his numbers, when he does it, and it's usually an overtime power play. He's been fantastic when the games have been on the line. Last night he makes the play to Giroux, and the goal is scored. So. And his overtime numbers are unbelievable. So without a doubt, I don't think if Philly brings him up, 2, 3, 4 weeks later, we're probably not having this conversation. Number one, about him winning the Rookie of the Year, but number 2, about Philadelphia being in the playoff hunt.
Right now, Philadelphia, we know they're tied with Detroit. Of the 2 teams, I know Philadelphia's got a heck of a lot of momentum here, but just looking at the 2 teams, who do you think's better?
Well, I don't know if it's better, but Philadelphia's playing better right now, and that's the most important thing. It's always been who is playing best going in the playoffs. That's why the President's Trophy in the NHL. I think until the last 7-8 years, whoever wins the President's Trophy wins the Stanley Cup, and that was Chicago once. It's much more important how you're playing, and obviously if Philadelphia makes the playoffs, they're going to have to be unbelievable down the stretch, as will Detroit. If Detroit makes the playoffs, they're going to have to be unbelievable down the stretch. So I really like the way Philadelphia's playing right now. They're playing better than Detroit. The goaltending in Philly's better than Detroit's. So right now and the game in hand is huge, but games in hand are only good if you win them. So, but if Philadelphia takes care of business and wins that game in hand, obviously things change. So right now Philadelphia's got the momentum over Detroit. I don't think there's much doubt about that.
Barry Melrose with us here on the Sports Bash. And Barry, off the air, Mike Gill and I were talking about future Flyers and faces we could see, and the name Provorov gets thrown around a lot. And I had a discussion with somebody last night about the quandary that Ron Hakstol could be in next year because of Provorov's age and eligibility and all that type of stuff, like what they do with him. But that's kind of a two-part question, I guess. What are your thoughts about Provorov, and where do you see him fitting into the Flyers eventually?
Well, he'll make the decision for the team. There's no decision. If the guy is great, he's going to play. That's how it is. It's as a general manager and a coach, you don't worry about burning a year in his contract. You don't worry about this. You don't worry about that. If the guy is going to help your team, he's going to be on the team. And Hexy's made a lot of good decisions. The Hakstol thing was a tough decision. It's worked out. The salary dump earlier in the year was a tough decision. Worked out. So Hexy hasn't made many mistakes lately. But again, the players and fans are funny that way. It's a decision. The coach doesn't make the decision in training camp. The player makes a decision for you. It's very easily. If he's going to help your team, he's going to be in the lineup. If he's not going to help your team, then he'll be back in junior, or he'll be in the American League, depending on what his age is.
Vinny LeCavalier with a couple goals last night for the Kings, by the way.
Yeah, but you can't worry about that. That wasn't happening in Philadelphia. It's what Vinny was doing in Philadelphia and what Schenn was doing in Philadelphia. It's not what they've done with the LA Kings. That was an entirely different story. And, Vinny was a good fit into a veteran team that needed a certain type player, and so was Schenn, and they both played well for LA, but that wasn't the way it was working in Philadelphia. So that's sort of a situation that helped both teams.
Barry, what about the other Schenn, Braden, who was kind of the centerpiece of that deal a couple of years ago? I don't know that he's ever lived up to the expectations the Flyers thought they were getting, but this year, the second half, he has really turned it on. 24 goals, 53 points. How about Braden Schenn? Has he kind of grown up here? I mean, are we buying? He is a free agent at the end of the year, so should the Flyers be considering bringing him back? Are you impressed enough with him?
Well, you start getting around that 30-goal mark. That's pretty elite numbers in the NHL, and he's been good. He's doing, as a free agent, he's doing exactly what he should do. He's having a great year, and now let's put the onus on the Philadelphia Flyers. There'll be a number of teams out there interested in a young guy that can score, close to 30 goals. Philadelphia knows him, that'll be a decision Hexy has to make. But, he's doing everything he should do as a free agent. All I want to do is play great and then make it a tough decision for my team, or make it an easy decision for some teams out there that have some cap money. So, he's doing exactly what he should do and is playing great every night and scoring goals. And that's his job. He's a goal scorer. He's not a grinder. He's not a physical player. He's not a tough guy. He's a guy that puts the puck in the net. So he's doing what he should be doing and making some tough decisions for everybody involved.
Barry, I would never presume to see the game the way that you see the game. I think you see it in a way I don't. But Jake Voracek, I was at the game last night sitting up high in the press box and looking down, and he just looked a step slow. He just looked a little bit off, like his hands are off, his feet are off. How much of that is fatigue or is something really wrong with Jake Voracek?
Jake is one of the funniest. It's not funny, but it's because I really like the guy. But it's just for a while he looked unbelievable in the NHL. He looked like a superstar in the making. It looked like him and Drew were going to be the cornerstones of a great reemergence of the Philadelphia Flyers, a lot like Clark and Barber. Two guys that can score, two guys that can check, two guys that can play hard every night, two guys can play in today's NHL, and then he disappears for a while, and then he'll come back for a while. So that is one of the major question marks in the NHL is Voracek. Who is he? Was he the guy that almost won the scoring race one year, or is he the guy we've seen at times lately that hasn't looked like an elite forward? I love his competitiveness. I love the way he plays, but Voracek is a guy that's got to be an elite NHL forward, and at times he hasn't been, and then you got to start wondering, he makes a lot of money, and that'll be a tough question mark for the Philadelphia Flyers. At times he looks great, at times he looks awesome. So that's really been a real tough guy to watch all year long, really the last 2 years, because he has shown so much talent previous to that.
Flyers tomorrow night taking on the Capitals. As Barry mentioned, they've clinched the President's Trophy, so we'll see what kind of effort they bring tomorrow night. And the Red Wings in action tonight there in Montreal. And, of course, the Flyers are now just 2 points behind the Islanders. And, Barry, that last game of the year now looms large, that makeup game that has been rescheduled for the final Sunday of the year, which now looks like it could be meaningful for both teams involved.
Yeah. Well, the Bruins have put themselves back in play also, although they won last game. But they're not assured of things either. So, the best way to worry about something like this is just win your games. That's what you're telling your team in the dressing room. Just win our games. We can't worry about what Detroit does. We can't worry about what the Islanders do. We can't worry about what Boston does. Let's just win our games. And that's all you can worry about as a coach and as a team. And I'm sure that's a message that Dave Hakstol has in the Philadelphia dressing room. We win our games. We win our game in hand. Everything will be taken care of, and I think that would be the message sent every night by the Philadelphia Flyers.
And that's been his MO with North Dakota. Slow starts, fast finishes. Barry, prediction time, Philadelphia, Detroit. Who's in, who's out? You know what?
2 weeks ago, I would have said Detroit was in, but the way goaltending has worked out, the way Philadelphia is playing right now, I think Philly gets in. I really like the way they're playing. They really seem to have some resilience. Detroit's not playing awesome right now. I think Philly gets in. It's going to be an amazing story.
He's Barry Melrose, ESPN, and of course here on the Sports Bash, Flyers hockey tomorrow night on 97.3. They take on the Capitals. Thank you, Barry.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.